Hello, Algebra students. Today we're going to cover Lesson 2-1, Slope-Intercept Form. Please put your name, date, and period on your paper. Our objectives today are write linear equations in two variables using slope-intercept form. To represent the relationship between two quantities. And you should have learned some of this in 8th grade. We will interpret the slope and the y-intercept of a linear model. Our vocabulary is slope-intercept form, forma pendiente, intercepto, y-intercept, intercepto en y, linear equation, ecuación lineal. For our essential understanding, this is what I want everybody to learn by the end of this section, is when a linear equation is written in slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, m is the slope, and the line which intersects the y-axis at 0, b is called the y-intercept. So the y-intercept is b. For our first example, we are going to graph a linear equation y equals -3/4 x minus 5. To do this, we need to know our y-intercept and we need to know our slope. So we use m as our slope, and that's just the letter we use. Our slope is equal to a rise over run, and in our equation, it is always the coefficient of x. It's the number in front of x. So that is equal to -3/4. And then our y-intercept, we use the letter b, and that is this number here. It's the number that does not have a variable attached to it, and so our y-intercept is -5. And when we're graphing, we want to know where that coordinate is. So if you look back up at our essential understanding, that's the 0, b. That means that the y-intercept is going to go on the y-axis at -5. So this is our y-intercept. Again, this should be review from 8th grade. And then our rise and run, if I were to go down 3 and I run 4, that's going to put me off the graph. So we're going to do a little trick. We're going to say that if the rise is -3 and the run is +4, then the rise could also be +3 and the run could be -4. Because as long as we simplify this out and it's -3/4, it doesn't matter which one we do as a negative, as long as just one of them is negative. So this is just a little trick where it makes it easier to graph. So from that point -5, or 0, -5, I'm going to rise 3, and I'm going to run -4. So rise +3 means we're going to go up. That's a rise of 3. And then our run is going to go backwards. It went to the left, -4. That's our run. And I'm going to put a little dot here. And then I could connect them, but I just wanted to show you that if I were to have gone down 3 and it goes off the graph. 1, 2, 3, as a rise of negative 3. And then we were to go over 4. And that would be a run of positive 4. That would put our point right here, which will also be on this line. But because it goes off the graph, it's better to do that trick where we go backwards. Okay, so you can take your rise over run in either direction. Just make sure that since this is a negative slope, right, the slope is negative 3/4, that our line should be going downwards this way. That's a negative slopes go downwards. Let's make sure that we're ready to turn our page. On this example, we are going to write an equation from a graph. So to do that, we want to remember that our equation form is y equals mx plus b. And our m is a rise over run. So m equals rise over run. And our b is our y-intercept. Okay, so the m comes from here. The b is our y-intercept. And just like our last example, we started with the y-intercept. And in this graph, our y-intercept, where is that at? Where does it cross the y-axis? That's right. It crosses right here at negative 5. Let's see it right here. And so our y-intercept is negative 5, so that's what we're going to put into the b. And we could also write it as 0, negative 5. Because we don't go left or right, we just go down to negative 5. And our rise over run, to figure that out, we need to go from one of the dots on our graph to the second dot on our graph. And so we're going to draw like little stairs going up. 1, 2, 3. That's a rise of 3. And then we're going to go right. So these are both positive. Up is positive and to the right is positive. So our run is 4. Put that in black so you can see it. The run is 4. The rise was 3. Okay, because we went up, it was positive, and because we went right, it was positive. So for our slope, we're going to say that our rise over run is 3/4. Now from that, all we have to do is plug it into our y equals mx plus b equation. So y equals m is 3/4, that's our slope, x, so you're always going to put something here, and then plus negative 5. So you put the b into that spot. And it's always y equals something x plus something. We could simplify this to be y equals 3/4 x minus 5 as well. So either one of these is correct. It's just because the plus negative can turn into just a minus. In this example, we are actually going to run out of space. I didn't leave enough space for you to work this out. So you're going to use a piece of lined paper, and then we'll just staple the lined paper to these notes. Okay? So in this example, it says write the equations in slope-intercept form of the line that passes through the given points. The first step is to label these x and y. So this is going to be x1, y1, x2, y2. You may have learned last year that we find the slope by taking the change in y over the change in x. So the vertical change over the horizontal change, right? So m is equal to the vertical change, which is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And that is just how we find slope. So now what we need to do is we need to look at our y's, right? So our y's are, maybe it'd help if I put them in a different color, y1 and y2. Tiger colors, blue and orange. Y2 is 6, so 6 minus y1 is 4. Okay, and there's always going to be a minus in between. Divided by the x2 is negative 1 minus the x1 is 5. So now we just do that math. 6 minus 4 is 2. Negative 1 minus 5 is negative 6. And that reduces to just negative 1/3. This is our rise over our run. This is our m. Okay? We need to save that number for later, so I'm going to highlight it. And that is our m. Then we are going to need to find our y-intercept, and this is going to be tricky. So the first thing that we do, we know that y equals mx plus b. We also need to choose a point. The point that I want to choose is going to be this 5, 4, and the reason I'm choosing that to put into our x and y is just because 5, 4 is a little bit nicer than negative 1, 6. But you could really choose the negative 1, 6 as well. Then I'm going to plug in my slope, which was m, as well. All right, so hoping that color coding helps you a little bit. Our y was 4, if you look back at the green highlighter. Our m we solved was negative 1/3. Our x is 5. And then we have plus b. We are trying to solve for b. Okay? Then from here, we're just going to simplify. So 4 equals, that's going to be negative 5/3 plus b. I'm going to bring it up here. I'm going to rewrite the negative 5/3 as negative 1 2/3 because it's going to make it easier to solve for b, right? So the negative 5/3 became negative 1 2/3. That's what we did. So we put it into a mixed fraction. I'm going to add 1 2/3 to 4 and to the negative 1 2/3 so that we can solve for b, right? We're trying to figure out what is that y-intercept. 4 plus 1 is 5. So the y-intercept, b, is 2/3. I need to know that because I have to know the y-intercept and I have to know the slope to be able to write an equation in slope-intercept form. Okay, so that's our b. We're going to now plug those in. Lots of steps. So this is one step. And over here, if y equals mx plus b, then in the in the m and b, we need to put what we solved for. So we have to plug in b, and we have to plug in m, and the y and x just stay y and x. This would be really beneficial for you to re-watch this video and practice the problem again, because this is tricky. So for the slope, we filled out negative 1/3, and for the y-intercept, we substituted in 5 2/3. And this is our final answer. Like I said, re-watch this video and work it out step by step. And notice, like, the first thing that we did was we found the slope. The second thing that we did was we had to solve for the y-intercept b. And then finally, the third step is we just had to plug in our m and our b, our slope and y-intercept, into the equation y equals mx plus b.